Welcome to the LEA Private Nonprofit Equitable Services Random Validation Training. I am Lenitra Guest, ESA PNP Ombudsman in the Federal Program Compliance Division. The PNP Random Validation for 21-22 will request documentation for one selected program requirement. However, a district must ensure that it has documentation on file for all PNP program requirements. This session will provide information regarding the LEA documented administration equitable services amounts for random validation. This presentation will share information regarding the consultation validation indicator and the documentation submission process. Documenting overall compliance for a program requirement may require several forms of documentation to be maintained locally and available upon request by TEA and/or an auditor. To ensure overall compliance with program requirements, LEA should refer to the program guide and/or other program-related resources that reference the multiple forms of documentation required to be maintained locally. The documentation requested for submission during the random validation process may not include all forms of documentation that are required to be maintained locally. Please note that due to COVID-19, documentation for virtual meetings is an acceptable form of documentation. Given the increased use of virtual meeting environments, participant rosters that include the meeting title, meeting date, and stakeholder names and roles would be acceptable substitutes for the more traditional sign-in sheets. This eliminates the need of a participant signature. For the 21-22 school year, the PNP random validation is for randomly selected LEAs to provide documentation of PNP administration equitable services amounts. LEAs should review the 2021-2022 PNP Random Validation Handbook for the LEA documented Equitable Services Administration amounts. The handbook provides the information regarding the selected PNP requirement, instructions for completing the submission packet, instructions for uploading random validation documentation, and a timeline for the PNP random validation process. In addition, the handbook shares the law alignment among the ESSA statutory citations, program-specific provisions and assurances, and the compliance report. If the LEA does not set aside administration costs for this year, it will submit the submission packet with comments in the page 1 box with an explanation such as the LEA does not take administration costs for equitable services. That would be sufficient. LEAs will complete applicable sections of the submission packet, include specifically identified relevant documentation, if applicable, and follow the random validation handbook instructions to submit documents through the ESA report application until no later than January 14, 2022. The ESA Section 1117 provides the statutory requirement for Title I Part A Equitable Services Administration amounts. The ESA Section 8501 and Code of Federal Regulations, Title 34, subsection 299.6 provides the statutory requirements for the Title VIII programs. The Title VIII programs include Title II Part A, Title III Part A, Title IV Part A, and Title IV B, Equitable Service Administration amounts. Program-specific provisions and assurances refer to the Title I Part A and Title VIII PNP Equitable Services Administration amounts program requirements that may be found in the LEA Consolidated Federal Grant application on the pages listed in the slide. Program-specific provisions and assurances referring to the Title VIII PNP Equitable Services Administration program requirements are found in sections 8501 through 8504. More specific information may be found in the Title VIII sections 8501 through 8504 once you click on the link to receive additional information regarding the administration requirements. On the 21-22 LEA Compliance Report, one of the LEA Program Compliance Self-Check indicators state the LEA documented the Equitable Services Administration amount used and provided a written explanation to all applicable participating programs. The LEA should submit specific documentation which provides evidence it shared applicable title program Equitable Services Administration amounts with participating PNP school officials during consultation. Acceptable evidence would include documentation that the LEA informed PNP school officials during consultation meetings of how, if applicable, any Equitable Services Administration amounts are used. LEA should only submit documentation for one participating PNP school campus to show evidence it documented the Equitable Services Administration amounts for the PNP school officials during consultation. The written documentations required for the administration amounts is the written document supporting private nonprofit equitable services administration amounts. Issues that may result in an improvement needed status includes auditable documentation requested was not submitted, documentation submitted does not reference the requested PNP validation requirement, or documentation from a prior year was submitted instead of the current year's documentation. The PNP random validation timeline provides the dates of the random validation process. Selected LEAs will receive initial notification through email on December 1st, 2021. LEAs will have until January 14th, 2022 to submit requested documentation on ESA reports. The notification of LEA results will be shared on April 26, 2022. If the LEA receives an improvement needed status on a program requirement, the LEA will be required to submit documentation for 2022 through 23 for the same requirement. The documentation must be uploaded on ESA reports no later than September 30th, 2022. Thank you for attending this session. If you have additional questions or need technical assistance, please email ESA support@tea.texas.gov. Thank you and have a wonderful day.